The Galactic Survey Corps vessel Eternal Dawn hung silently in orbit around the uncharted planet, its crystalline hull refracting the light of an unfamiliar yellow star. Chief Xenobiologist Vextra stood at the observation deck, her iridescent scales shifting colors with each wave of excitement that passed through her body. After 300 cycles of exploration, she had finally found something extraordinary. Preliminary scans confirmed Class 12 toxicity levels. Honored Chief, her assistant Kretil announced, his tentacles waving in agitation. The atmospheric composition alone should make complex life impossible. Yet we detect civilization. Vextra finished, her inner eyelids blinking rapidly as she processed the data streaming across her neural interface. Not just civilization, but a technological society existing in what should be a death world. The planet below them was, by all reasonable standards, uninhabitable. Oxygen levels that would corrode most known metals. Atmospheric pressure that would crush standard environmental suits. Gravity that would shatter the bones of most spacefaring species. And yet, there they were, sprawling cities, orbital satellites, and clear signs of an industrial civilization. How do they survive? Kretil wondered aloud, his chromatophores pulsing with puzzlement. Our most heavily shielded probes lasted less than 30 rotations in that environment. Vextra's scales shifted to the deep blue of scientific fascination. That, my young colleague, is exactly what we're going to find out. Prepare the long-range observation equipment. We need to study these beings before making any contact decisions. Over the next several planetary rotations, the crew of the Eternal Dawn watched in growing amazement as they documented the impossible species below. The beings, which they dubbed deathworlders for their incredible habitat, displayed a bewildering array of capabilities. They moved freely in the crushing gravity, their bizarre bictal forms somehow maintaining structural integrity. They breathed the caustic atmosphere without protection. Most shockingly, they seemed to thrive in temperature variations that would kill most known species. Look at this footage, Vextra called out during one observation session. The main screen showed a group of deathworlders engaging in what appeared to be recreational activity, deliberately subjecting themselves to intense physical stress while moving at high speeds. Are they testing their environmental tolerances? Kretil suggested. No, Vextra replied, her scales rippling with fascination. They appear to be doing this for enjoyment. Their endurance is remarkable. We've observed individuals maintaining sustained physical activity for periods that would exhaust our most enhanced warriors. But it wasn't just their physical capabilities that captured the research team's attention. The Deathworlders displayed complex social structures, created art, and showed signs of advanced mathematical understanding. They were clearly intelligent, despite living in conditions that should have made complex neural development impossible. The decision to initiate contact was not made lightly. The Galactic Survey Corps had strict protocols about interfacing with newly discovered species, especially ones that showed technological development. But the potential scientific value was too great to ignore. We'll start with a single specimen, Vextra announced to her team. One individual, carefully selected and extracted for detailed study. We must understand how they've adapted to these conditions. The medical applications alone could revolutionize our society. The extraction team chose their target carefully, a solitary deathworlder in a remote area, minimizing the risk of detection. The operation was executed with precision, using technology that the primitive species shouldn't have been able to detect. They were wrong. The moment their containment field activated around the chosen specimen, every piece of electronic equipment within a kilometer radius went dead. The Deathworlder had some kind of personal defense system that their scans hadn't detected. Before the extraction team could adjust, the specimen had already triggered what appeared to be an emergency beacon. Abort. Kretil called out in panic. More of them are approaching. But Vextra's scales had shifted to the deep purple of determination. No. Proceed with the extraction. We'll deal with any complications. This is too important to abandon. The specimen, a female deathworlder, was successfully transported to the Eternal Dawn's containment facility. But as they would soon learn, their careful plans and assumptions about this species were about to be thoroughly shattered. Remarkable, Vextra noted as she reviewed the initial medical scans. Their cellular structure, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. Look at how their body maintains homeostasis even under extreme stress. And their neural patterns. They're operating at energy levels that should be impossible for organic matter. The specimen was surprisingly calm in captivity, showing none of the panic they expected from a primitive species. Instead, she studied them with an intensity that made even the veteran researchers uncomfortable. She seemed to be analyzing their technology, their movements, their patterns of behavior. Should we be concerned? Kratil asked, watching as the deathworlder methodically tested the boundaries of her containment field. She doesn't behave like any specimen we've studied before. Vextra's scales flickered with uncertainty for the first time since the mission began. No species has ever demonstrated this level of adaptive capability. We need to proceed with caution, but the potential knowledge we could gain. She was interrupted by a sudden alert from the ship's security system. Multiple vessels had appeared in orbit around the planet. Vessels that hadn't been there moments before. Their design was crude by galactic standards, but they had somehow managed to approach undetected. Impossible, Kratil whispered, his tentacles coiling in distress. Their technology shouldn't be capable of. The specimen spoke then, in perfect galactic standard, a language she should have had no way of knowing. "Those would be my friends," she said calmly. "I suggest you open a channel. They're probably not very happy about this unauthorized extraction." The research team stared in shocked silence as their carefully controlled first contact situation spun rapidly out of control. They had thought they were studying a primitive species. Instead, they had inadvertently provoked a civilization that had managed to hide its true capabilities from even their most sophisticated scanning technology. Vextra's scales shifted rapidly through patterns of confusion, concern, and finally, a deep respect. She had wanted to study how this species survived in impossible conditions. Now she was beginning to understand. They didn't just survive, they thrived on challenges that would destroy most civilizations. "Open a channel," she ordered, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. "It seems we have much to learn about our new friends." The specimen, who had introduced herself as Dr. Sarah Chen, xenobiologist, smiled in a way that somehow managed to be both friendly and predatory. "Yes," she agreed, "I believe we all have quite a lot to learn from each other." As the first official communication channel opened between the two civilizations, Vextra couldn't help but wonder if they had just made first contact with a species that would fundamentally change their understanding of what was possible. The Deathworlders had already proven that their assumptions about biological and technological limitations were wrong. What other impossibilities would they casually disprove? The answer to that question would reshape the galaxy in ways that none of them could have predicted. But that was just the beginning of humanity's introduction to the galactic community, and the galaxy's introduction to the species that called the impossible home. The diplomatic quarters aboard the Eternal Dawn had never been designed to accommodate a Deathworlder. Emergency structural reinforcements had been hastily installed, and the atmospheric controls trained to maintain conditions suitable for both species. Dr. Sarah Chen sat comfortably in a specially constructed chair, seemingly oblivious to the fact that the gravity in the room was set to levels that would crush most sentient species. "Your civilization's ability to hide its true technological capabilities is concerning," High Commander Zixtel stated, his crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the room's light in patterns of authority and unease. "Our preliminary scans showed a primitive industrial society." Sarah smiled, a gesture that still made many of the alien crew members uncomfortable. "We've learned that it's better to observe before revealing ourselves fully. Your society isn't the first to discover Earth, though you're the first to attempt an extraction." The implications of that statement sent ripples of color cascading through the assembled alien officials. Chief Xenobiologist Vextra's scales shifted to deep crimson with excitement. Other civilizations have found your world. Yet we have no records of. They chose not to report their findings, Sarah interrupted smoothly. After certain demonstrations of our capabilities, they agreed it was better to maintain our privacy. The human had been aboard their vessel for 3 planetary rotations, and each interaction left the crew more fascinated and unsettled. She moved with an ease that defied their understanding of physics, her dense musculature and reinforced skeletal structure allowing her to function normally in conditions that should have been lethal. But it wasn't just her physical capabilities that challenged their assumptions. The neural scans they'd been permitted to take showed patterns of activity that contradicted everything they knew about conscious thought. The human brain operated at energy levels that should have caused immediate thermal breakdown. We propose a mutual exchange, Sarah continued, pulling out what appeared to be a primitive data storage device. Our scientists are quite interested in your crystalline biotechnology. In return, we can offer insights into how we've adapted to our unique environmental challenges. Vextra couldn't contain her enthusiasm. Your cellular repair mechanisms alone could revolutionize our medical technology. The way your species handles radiation exposure is classified, Sarah cut in firmly, along with several other adaptations, but we're willing to share what we can, within reasonable limits. The negotiations continued for several hours, with both sides carefully probing the boundaries of what the other was willing to reveal. The aliens were particularly interested in human endurance and adaptability, while Sarah showed keen interest in their faster-than-light technology. Back in her research lab, Vextra reviewed the preliminary data they'd been allowed to collect. "Look at this, Kretil," she called to her assistant. "Their nervous system doesn't just resist our standard paralytic fields. It appears to adapt to them in real time." Kretil's tentacles writhed with scientific excitement. The implications for evolutionary theory are staggering. No species should be able to develop these capabilities naturally. The energy requirements alone suggest that we're missing something fundamental about how biological systems can operate, Vextra finished. Their entire existence challenges our basic assumptions about what's possible. The human had agreed to participate in certain controlled experiments, though she set strict limitations on what could be tested. Each session revealed new impossibilities. She could consciously control autonomic functions that should have been beyond voluntary influence. Her bones, despite their incredible density, could heal from stress fractures in days rather than months. But it was their psychological testing that produced the most unsettling results. The simulation was designed to determine whether your civilization is ready for the truth about humanity, she replied. We've had to be careful about how we reveal ourselves to the galactic community. Some species react poorly to discovering that their assumptions about the natural order of things are wrong. The implications hung in the air like a physical presence. Their supposedly primitive research subject had been assessing their civilization's readiness for contact the entire time. Every interaction, every experiment, every seemingly casual conversation had been part of a sophisticated evaluation protocol. "And what have you concluded?" Vextra asked, her scales shifting through patterns of scientific curiosity and newfound respect. Sarah's smile held genuine warmth this time. "That's what we're about to find out. My colleagues have finished their analysis of your civilization's response to my presence. The next phase of our interaction depends entirely on how you handle what I'm about to show you." She reached into her pocket and pulled out what appeared to be a simple crystalline sphere, except it was impossible. The technology she held shouldn't have existed. It combined principles of physics that their scientists had declared mutually exclusive. "This," she said quietly, "is just the beginning of what humanity can offer to the galaxy. The question is, are you ready to have everything you think you know challenged?" The sphere began to glow, and with it, the future of 2 civilizations hung in the balance. The real experiment was just beginning. The crystalline sphere in Sarah's hand pulsed with impossible energies, casting shadows that moved in ways that violated the known laws of physics. The assembled alien leadership watched in stunned silence as the device projected a holographic display that encompassed the entire chamber. What you're seeing, Sarah explained, is a real-time visualization of local space-time fabric, not a simulation. Actual quantum-level observations of reality itself. High Commander Zixtal's crystalline form vibrated with barely contained shock. That's not possible. The uncertainty principle alone would prevent direct observation of quantum states while maintaining coherence, Sarah finished. At least according to your current understanding of physics. Humanity passed that limitation 3 decades ago. The display shifted, showing the complex interactions of dark matter with normal space, another phenomenon that should have been impossible to observe directly. But it was the next revelation that truly shattered their worldview. Your faster-than-light technology, Sarah continued, relies on creating artificial corridors through space-time. Effective, but incredibly energy-intensive. We took a different approach. The display showed a new set of equations that made Vextra's scales ripple with scientific shock. You're not breaking the light-speed barrier, Kratil whispered, his tentacles writhing as he processed the implications. You're manipulating the underlying structure of space itself. Sarah nodded. Reality is far more malleable than most species assume. The universe isn't just stranger than you imagine. It's stranger than you can imagine. At least, until you learn to think beyond conventional limitations. The humans' revelations continued, each more staggering than the last. Their civilization had mastered technologies that the aliens had considered theoretically impossible. But it wasn't just their technological achievements that proved revolutionary. It was their fundamental approach to understanding reality. Your species, Vextra observed, doesn't seem to accept impossibility as a concept. We accept it as a challenge, Sarah corrected. Every time someone tells us something can't be done, we take it as an invitation to prove them wrong. It's driven our development in ways that more cautious species might find reckless. The implications of humanity's capability sent shockwaves through the alien command structure. Some advocated for immediately sharing this information with the Galactic Council. Others argue for keeping it secret, fearing the disruption such revelations could cause to established power structures. But the humans had anticipated this reaction. As the alien leadership debated, Sarah revealed another surprise. We've already made contact with 17 other civilizations in this sector alone. Each one is currently going through a similar process of integration and adjustment. The news hit like a physical blow. Their civilization wasn't being singled out for first contact. They were part of a carefully orchestrated series of revelations designed to gradually introduce humanity to the galactic community. Why now? High Commander Zixtal demanded. Why reveal yourselves this way? Sarah's expression grew serious. Because the galaxy is changing. There are threats approaching that will require all of us to work together. Humanity has been preparing for these challenges, but we can't face them alone. The holographic display shifted again, showing astronomical data that made the alien scientists recoil in horror. Patterns in the movement of distant galaxies, subtle shifts in cosmic radiation. Signs that something vast and incomprehensible was stirring in the void between galaxies. We call them the void dancers, Sarah explained. They exist primarily in dimensions we can barely perceive. We've been tracking their movement for the past century. They'll reach our galaxy within 50 years. The revelation of an existential threat changed the entire dynamic of their interaction. This wasn't just about scientific exchange or diplomatic relations. Humanity was recruiting allies for a coming war that would challenge the very nature of reality itself. Your civilization has something we need, Sarah continued. Your crystalline biotechnology, combined with our understanding of quantum manipulation, could be key to developing defenses against the void dancers. But it will require trust, partnership, true cooperation. Vextra's scales shifted through patterns of fear, excitement, and finally, determination. You're proposing more than just an alliance. You want to fundamentally merge our technological bases. We want to merge more than that, Sarah confirmed. Knowledge, culture, understanding. The challenges ahead, will require us to transcend our current limitations, all of us together. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just offering to share technology. They were proposing a fundamental transformation of both civilizations. The risks were enormous, but the potential benefits were even greater. "There's something else you should know," Sarah added, her voice taking on a more somber tone. "The reason we've survived on what you call a death world, the reason we've developed such unique capabilities, it's not just about evolution or adaptation." The crystalline sphere in her hand pulsed again, and this time the holographic display showed something that defied comprehension. The true nature of human consciousness, operating on quantum levels that shouldn't have been possible for organic beings. "We're not just a product of our harsh environment," she explained. "Something changed us, long ago. The same beings that we now call the Void Dancers, they visited Earth in our prehistoric past. What they did to us, what they made us become, it's why we're the only ones who can see them coming. And it's why we need your help to face them." The chamber fell silent as the aliens processed this revelation. Everything they thought they knew about humanity, about their own place in the universe, had been upended. But in that silence, something new was being born, the beginning of a partnership that would reshape the galaxy. "Time is short," Sarah concluded. "The choice before you isn't just about sharing technology or forming alliances. It's about whether your civilization is ready to step into a larger universe, one filled with wonders and terrors beyond your current comprehension. We're offering to guide you through that transition, but the decision must be yours." The future hung in the balance as the alien leadership faced their moment of choice. The comfortable certainties of their past were gone, replaced by the terrifying and exhilarating possibility of true transcendence. The real question wasn't whether they would accept humanity's offer. It was whether they were ready for what acceptance would mean. The transformation of the Eternal Dawn began almost immediately after the alien leadership accepted humanity's proposal. Human engineers arrived within days, their ships seemingly materializing from nowhere, bringing with them technologies that bent reality in ways that made the alien crew question their sanity. "The integration process has to be gradual," Sarah explained as she supervised the installation of quantum crystalline hybrid systems throughout the ship. "Too much exposure to higher dimensional physics at once can be problematic for unprepared minds." Vextra watched in fascination as human technicians worked alongside her people, their movements precise despite the crushing gravity. "You mentioned that your own transformation was forced upon your species. How did you manage to survive it?" Sarah's expression darkened. "Not all of us did. Humanity's prehistory is filled with extinction events, periods where large portions of our population simply vanished. We thought they were natural disasters. Now we know they were failed experiments." The implications sent shivers through Vextra's scales. "The Void Dancers were testing you, shaping us," Sarah corrected, "though I doubt they anticipated the final result. Humanity has a habit of exceeding expectations, even those of transdimensional entities." Throughout the ship, the merger of human and alien technology produced remarkable results. The crystalline biotechnology of Vextra's people, combined with human quantum engineering, created systems that were more than the sum of their parts. The ship's sensors now penetrated layers of reality previously invisible to both species. But it wasn't just technology that was being integrated. The presence of humans aboard the ship began to affect the alien crew in subtle ways. Their rigid hierarchical structure started to show flexibility. Individual crew members began displaying initiative in ways that would have been unthinkable before. "Your species radiates change," Cretil observed during one of their regular research sessions. "It's as if proximity to humans accelerates evolution itself." Sarah nodded. "We call it the catalyst effect. It's one of the changes the Void Dancers made to us. Though again, probably not intentionally. We don't just adapt to challenges. We cause everything around us to adapt as well." The effect became more pronounced as the days passed. Alien crew members began reporting strange dreams, visions of impossible geometries and physics-defying phenomena that somehow made perfect sense while they were experiencing them. Their brains were literally being rewired to perceive higher dimensions. The process can't be rushed, Sarah cautioned when some crew members requested acceleration of their transformation. Your consciousness needs time to adapt. Push too hard, too fast, and the results can be unfortunate. They learned this lesson the hard way when one of the engineering team attempted to interface directly with a human quantum computer without proper preparation. The resulting mental breakdown nearly caused a cascade failure in the ship's new hybrid systems. Your people evolved alongside these technologies, High Commander Zixtal noted after the incident. We're trying to compress millions of years of development into months. Which is why we're being careful, Sarah replied. But we don't have the luxury of taking it too slowly. The Void Dancers are coming, and when they arrive, everyone in this galaxy needs to be ready to perceive and fight them. The threat became more tangible as the ship's enhanced sensors began detecting anomalies at the edge of known space. Reality itself seemed to be thinning in certain regions, creating windows into dimensions that defied description. They're not just coming to our galaxy, Sarah explained as they observed one such anomaly. They're coming to collect on their investment. Humanity was their experiment, and now they want to see the results. The revelation sparked new urgency in the integration efforts. Human scientists began sharing more of their understanding of consciousness itself, how it operated on quantum levels, how it could be expanded to perceive and interact with higher dimensions. Your species already has the potential, Sarah explained during a particularly intense training session. All sentient beings do. Humans are just pre-adapted to access it, thanks to our unwanted modifications. The training was grueling. Alien crew members had to learn to think in ways that contradicted everything they had ever known about reality. They had to accept that their fundamental understanding of physics, of consciousness, of existence itself, was hopelessly limited. But the results were undeniable. Within weeks, members of the crew began developing abilities that their species had considered impossible. They could perceive quantum states directly, manipulate probability fields, even catch glimpses of the higher dimensions where the Void Dancers dwelled. This is just the beginning, Sarah said as she watched an alien engineer successfully manipulate quantum fields with his mind. The real challenge will be scaling this up to your entire civilization. The process wasn't without its costs. Some crew members couldn't handle the changes and had to be relieved of duty. Others developed almost obsessive fascinations with the new capabilities they were developing. The ship's medical bay was constantly dealing with cases of mental strain and physical adaptation symptoms. But through it all, an undeniable transformation was taking place. The aliens were becoming something more than they had been. Not quite human, but no longer limited to their original nature. They were evolving, adapting, transcending their limitations in ways that echoed humanity's own forced evolution. We're not just preparing for war. Vextra realized one day, as she successfully perceived all 11 dimensions simultaneously for the first time. We're becoming something new, something that neither of our species was before. Sarah's expression was both proud and somewhat sad. That's the real reason the Void Dancers are coming back. They started a process on Earth millions of years ago, and now that process is spreading throughout the galaxy. They want to see what they created. And if they don't like what they see? Kratil asked, his tentacles writhing with anxiety. Then we'll show them the same thing humanity has shown every entity that tried to control us, Sarah replied, her eyes glowing with quantum energy. That the created can surpass their creators. That evolution doesn't follow anyone's plan. And that the greatest power in the universe isn't the ability to manipulate reality. It's the will to defy it. As if in response to her words, the ship's new sensors detected another reality breach, larger than any they'd seen before. The Void Dancers weren't waiting. They were coming now, drawn by the changes taking place throughout the galaxy. The time for preparation was over. The real test was about to begin. The eternal dawn hung suspended at the edge of known space, its hybrid systems humming with energies that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The ship no longer resembled its original crystalline form. Human and alien technologies had merged to create something entirely new, something that reflected the transformation of its crew. Reality itself was unraveling around them. The Void Dancer's approach had torn holes in the fabric of space-time, creating windows into dimensions that no natural being was meant to perceive. Yet the crew watched through their enhanced senses, their modified consciousness allowing them to comprehend what should have been incomprehensible. "They're beautiful," Vextra whispered, her scales shifting through colors that didn't exist in normal space as she observed the approaching entities. Terrible, but beautiful. The Void Dancers defied conventional description. They existed primarily in dimensions beyond normal space-time, their true forms only partially visible as they intersected with our reality. What could be seen resembled vast, geometric patterns that moved with impossible grace, each movement distorting the basic laws of physics. "They're surprised," Sarah noted, her quantum-enhanced perception, reading the subtle fluctuations in higher dimensional energy fields. They didn't expect their experiment to spread beyond Earth. They certainly didn't expect us to help other species transcend their limitations. The first direct communication from the Void Dancers came not as words or signals, but as a wave of pure concept that washed over the ship. It carried within it curiosity, evaluation, and an unmistakable sense of ownership. They still saw humanity as their creation, their property to examine and judge. The human response was immediate and unified. Every human aboard the ship projected back a single, clear message: defiance. They had taken what was done to them and made it their own, transformed it into something the Void Dancers had never intended. "We need to show them," Sarah announced, her voice carrying through both normal and quantum channels. "Everyone, just as we practiced. Show them what we've become, what we've all become together." The crew of the Eternal Dawn, human and alien alike, joined their consciousness in a way that would have been impossible just months before. Their merged perception created a lens through which they could fully perceive and interact with the higher dimensions where the Void Dancers primarily existed. The aliens were shocked to discover that their consciousness was expanding beyond what even the humans had prepared them for. The merger of their crystalline neural patterns with human quantum consciousness created something unprecedented, a new form of awareness that even the Void Dancers had never encountered. "This is impossible," one of the Void Dancers projected, the thought carrying overtones of confusion and concern. The experiment was contained, limited. This evolution was not anticipated. "That's humanity's specialty," Sarah projected back, her thoughts carried on waves of quantum probability. "We don't just adapt, we transform. We take what's done to us and make it into something new. And now we shared that gift with others." The Void Dancers' response was to attempt to assert control, reaching out with higher dimensional forces to try to restrict and contain what they saw as their runaway experiment. But humanity had spent millions of years unconsciously preparing for this moment, and their alien allies had been carefully prepared. The crew of the Eternal Dawn responded with a demonstration of power that transcended normal physics. Their merged consciousness reached out through quantum fields, through crystalline matrices, through dimensions that had no names in any language. They showed the Void Dancers that their experiment had evolved far beyond its original parameters. "You made us what we are," Sarah projected, her thoughts carrying the weight of humanity's long journey from test subjects to masters of their own destiny. "But you don't control what we become." The battle that followed couldn't be properly described in terms of conventional warfare. It was fought across multiple dimensions, with consciousness and quantum fields as weapons, reality itself bending and warping around the combatants. The Void Dancers were ancient and powerful, but they faced something they had never encountered before. Beings who could not only perceive their true nature, but had learned to exceed it. The human-alien hybrid consciousness proved to be more than just a merger of different perspectives. It was a new form of existence, one that could adapt and evolve in real time, matching and then exceeding the Void Dancers' ability to manipulate reality. The crystalline precision of alien thought combined with human creativity and defiance created something that transcended both species' limitations. In the end, it wasn't raw power that decided the conflict. It was understanding. The hybrid consciousness achieved something the Void Dancers, for all their ancient power, had never managed. True comprehension of the spaces between dimensions, the quantum fabric that held reality together. You see space-time as something to bend and break. Sarah projected as the crew's merged consciousness surrounded the Void Dancers. We see it as something to grow and nurture. You tried to shape us in your image, but we chose to become something else entirely. The revelation shook the Void Dancers to their core. Their experiment hadn't just exceeded their expectations, it had transcended their understanding of what was possible. The beings they had meant to mold into tools had instead become teachers, showing them new ways of perceiving and interacting with reality. The confrontation ended not with destruction but with transformation. The Void Dancers, faced with proof that their assumptions about consciousness and evolution were fundamentally limited, chose to learn rather than continue their attempt at control. They had created humanity to understand the universe better, and now humanity and their allies were offering to help them achieve that goal in ways they had never imagined. As the tension of imminent conflict faded, replaced by the possibility of genuine cooperation, the crew of the Eternal Dawn maintained their merged consciousness. They had discovered something profound, a way of existence that offered more than either species could achieve alone. "This is just the beginning," Sarah said as the ship's hybrid systems pulsed with new understanding. "We've proven that consciousness can evolve beyond its original limitations, that different species can merge their perspectives to create something greater than the sum of its parts. The real question is, what do we become next?" The answer to that question would reshape not just their galaxy, but the very nature of consciousness itself. Humanity had taken what was meant to be a controlled experiment and turned it into a catalyst for universal transformation. The age of limited, singular consciousness was ending. A new era of infinite possibility was just beginning. The Eternal Dawn turned away from the edge of known space, its crew forever changed by their encounter. They carried within them not just the merger of two species' capabilities, but a new understanding of what consciousness could become. The ship's name had taken on new meaning. They were indeed witnessing the dawn of something eternal, something that would continue to grow and evolve beyond anything its creators could have imagined. The future was no longer about survival or adaptation. It was about transcendence, about choosing what to become rather than accepting what they were made to be. Humanity had shown the way, but the path forward would be walked by all species together, each bringing their own unique perspective to the ever-expanding consciousness of the universe itself.